will you do it like that? Now if she touches like this, will you touch her right back? Now if she moves like this, will you move her like that? Come on, shake, 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 shake it.
You're a fat pussy.
Shake, 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 shake it. Shake, 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 shake it. Shake, 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 shake it. Shake, 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 shake it.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen of LolCow Live? You're watching LolCow Live. With me, as always, is Tommy C. and Wings of Redemption. And this was one of our most requested guests. This is my brother, Dr. Brian Lee Williams. Brian, how you doing today, man?
Doctor?
Yeah.
Doctor
Yeah.
what?
Epidemiology, public health, PhD.
How come you turned out to be such a retard? Your brother's a doctor?
Right? Yeah. Well, he might be. Well, at least my camera's working, so you got to give me credit for that.
I was planning on messing this guy. Now he's smarter than me. What am I going to do?
Oh, no, he's smarter than everybody in this room combined. I'm fairly certain. Yeah.
Epidemiology.
We
Well,
probably
my first question,
dads.
since you're epidemiologist, is like, what the fuck is Boogie's problem?
So much.
If I knew that, I'd win a Nobel.
Why did you lock us up during COVID, you bastard? My fucking daughter.
It wasn't me. It wasn't me.
Pretty sure that was Fauci. Did you hear Fauci, Brian, say that he just made it all up as he was going along in an interview the other day?
What I meant by no science behind it is that there wasn't a controlled trial that said compare 6 foot with 3 feet with 10 feet. So there wasn't that scientific evaluation of it.
But they made a lot of conclusions where they had evidence and they were doing it very quickly and they knew it. I actually, my last contract I just finished was at CDC, working on vaccine effectiveness evaluation, and they make a lot of statements that are overstated. They exaggerate. There's just a lot of pressure on them to say certain things, and I think he was complicit in that, but it's no different than what happened with HIV. In fact, it was quite similar. They came out with very authoritative statements without a lot of proof and just basically went with it.
See, I told you he's smart. It's fucking scary.
Funny?
He's the white sheep of the family.
So would you think it's like Billy Graham giving like George Bush like war?
You know what's weird about that?
Like advice?
No, my mom got remarried, right? 89.
Yeah.
Okay. And she married he's a really smart doctor. And he was telling me, and this was not like, you won't remember this, Wings, because you're too young, but Boogie remember this. He was telling me that, this is the first time I heard it. He says, AIDS is dangerous, but it's not as dangerous as you think. And you're most in danger if you're a gay man. And I was like, whoa, this guy must be a racist, But
I remember hearing
that became, by the time the mid-90s rolled around, by the time I got to health class in high school, I graduated in 95. That was kind of common knowledge, and I had heard it before I went to high school in 89. And it's funny you say that because Fauci was in charge of the whole AIDS thing, and he made everybody, not that there wasn't something to panic over. I mean, it's a serious disease. It kills a lot.
Wait a minute. Is it not accurate that at the time you were more likely to catch it if you were a gay man?
You were, but they told you.
All right.
They told you could get it from kissing and I'm being hyperbolic. But
no, actually, you're not.
Really?
If you would, and I'm older than you, but if you look back even early in my research, because I've done a lot of research in looking at women's susceptibility to disease during pregnancy and things like that. Mm-hmm. And in fact, if you look back, even I finished my PhD in 93. And the first job I had, I actually was doing research that was related to that. And there was a scientist, and I forget his name now. He wrote the book Rethinking AIDS, and he was a MacArthur Prize Fellow, which is like a genius award at Princeton University. And he said, HIV is, in fact, will become a manageable disease, much like diabetes. And really, the only people who are going to get it and suffer severe consequences initially are going to be those who are severely immunocompromised, drug users. And he was kicked out of Princeton. Almost couldn't get a job. Is
this guy German by any chance? A German doctor?
No, he's not German. He's U.S. But
the German doctor that just died. He wrote a book around the same time. I want to say around 88, 89, called "Inventing the HIV Virus."
Right.
where and his career was ruined, and they took his doctorate over here. I live in Germany, and they took his doctorate over here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there was any dissension from the main line, but a lot of that was reaction to because Reagan had stigmatized, the HIV gay population, and they're afraid if they only focused on the gay population, they weren't going to get funding for it. But arguably, what Fauci did, in my opinion, was unconscionable. Is the same thing in some ways that they did with COVID. Is he's so closely aligned with the pharmaceutical industries and what they decide is good or what is bad. And the best example of that was AZT. We knew for the longest time AZT was toxic. It was probably not going to work. And there wasn't enough evidence to be using it. It was quite different in COVID because we had stuff that came out really quickly. But still, you don't know until it's been years.
Do you have like experience with the COVID sickness?
I actually never got COVID, but I was on the evaluate.
No, I was talking about like knowledge about it because I got a COVID question.
Not as a clinician, but I know a lot about the tracking, the vaccine effectiveness, and things like that.
Because like I had COVID twice, but I wouldn't consider either one of mine very like life threatening. But my wife's sister got it, and she was hospitalized, and it killed some elderly people. Like what's the difference between like? How does COVID go from like being like a really bad common cold to something that would actually kill you? Like what causes that?
It's really what we think of as host susceptibility. It's if you're unhealthy in general, or you have certain predispositions.
Everybody here.
Well, I mean, and as you age too, I mean, just naturally, you're going to have much higher risk factors, and it's going to be more violent. It's going to be more severe. And sometimes we don't know what those susceptibilities are. You think, for example, with sexually transmitted disease, HIV, herpes, we've all been exposed to it a million times. Why do some people have a reaction, others don't? And so a lot of that is, I mean, we find out sometimes what that predisposition is, and other times we don't. I almost never get a respiratory virus. Stephen, growing up, had tons of respiratory viruses.
Really?
It's just, who knows? Sometimes we get a handle on it, and other times we don't.
It's like that book, The Stand, where there's just certain people that are immune to the Captain Trips virus.
Yeah.
Some people just don't get it. No matter what, they don't get it, as it kills the rest of the population. That's pretty
right.
awesome.
And everybody has their Achilles heel. I always say if I'm going to go, it's probably going to be stomach cancer or something like that, because it just depends on the individual.
At least you ain't like Boogie going to die from like testosterone cancer.
Right. Yeah. Hooray. He's excited. I will say I do have two COVID follow-up questions, Brian. Number one, were you afraid that I would get it and die? And then secondly, were you afraid that you would get it and you wouldn't die?
I was actually afraid. I was afraid you'd get it and want to come live with me.
Oh, God, help us all. One time was enough. Jesus Christ.
I was never afraid. I was never afraid of getting it. I mean, I'd never. In fact, I didn't get vaccinated for the longest time, and I only did it because I had to.
Dude, with our inclinations, I'm surprised we weren't both out there just licking toilets trying to get it at this point.
All right.
Just like,
I hate to do the COVID thing, but I got one more thing. I'm not very healthy. I'm overweight. And
he doesn't look it in this particular window comparatively the rest of us.
Vape, but I was like a 2-pack-a-day cigarette smoker for a long time. And my doctor was overwhelmed. Loved the fact that I was smoking vape instead. I was told, and I was shocked because they had the same COVID sort of paranoia here. I had a stent put in my heart just before we started the show. And
like today?
No.
Like today.
The whole show.
I did recover in 24 hours and went to a football game the next day. Yeah. Like it was a bug out what they can do nowadays. But I had a really strange encounter with the nurse, and I was really surprised. She said this in front of the doctor. And she said to me, she goes, I have to let you know that I am proudly not a vaccine taker. Please let me know if that makes you uncomfortable in any way. And I said, no, not at this stage. I got much bigger problems anyway. So that led into a conversation because I was literally on like kind of an assembly line. There's a bunch of dudes, mostly older than me. I'm 47. mostly older than me, in bed, and we were just getting stints, like bam, bam, bam. And I asked her, is like, do you think? And she said this in front of the doctor, who was quiet but didn't tell her to shut up, right? Do you think that do you think that I'm here because of that I had taken the vaccine? And here's her reply was, let's just say business is booming here. And
That's a
is
conspiracy theorist.
there anything? Yeah, that's the thing. I don't know. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but it is weird that she would say this in front of her boss, and considering the political climate of the time. And she's telling me I didn't take the vaccine. I'm just letting you know ahead of time. Was she a kook, or do you
Not
think?
necessarily. I mean,
Yeah.
one thing you have to keep in mind is clinicians, physicians, nurses, so forth. They don't understand. They don't do the research. They don't understand the research. It's people like me. It was our job. I've been a PhD almost always in clinical environments where my job is to facilitate and interpret the research for them and to help them do their research as well as my own research. So when it comes to things like vaccine effectiveness, they don't understand a lot of what's going out there. And that's why they're so easily duped by big pharma. And the best example of that was the opioid crisis. They basically big pharma ran that show and told physicians what to do. But the bottom line is that all vaccines aren't the same. And, if I would be much more concerned if a clinical or a physician didn't have a Hep B or hepatitis vaccine, because I know that's a bloodborne infection that can be easily prevented through vaccine. But when it comes to other things, I'm less certain about it. And I think you need more evidence, you need more time. I do get concerned about not vaccinating children because of things that we know that, and we stopped polio, we stopped measles, those things make perfect sense. And we have literally decades and decades of experience. We don't have them in other areas. And, there's so much money to be made for vaccines. There's a reason we have so many damn different calcium channel blockers and all these different things, because it makes money, even if it doesn't necessarily improve the quality of life. Yep. And I think when it comes to any unknown disease, there's a lot of money to be made. If you look right now, what it costs for somebody, if they die of cancer versus they die of different, you basically destroy any family wealth that they have. Once they go into that spiral of spend past their insurance in the U.S. In Germany, obviously, you have socialized medicine.
Sort of. It's not. It's more of a co-op with the government. Right. It's not really socialized like you think. But yes, right. But go ahead. I apologize.
There is some safety net, and
yes, there is,
especially on the catastrophic side. Whereas here we don't have it, and that's where we start to run into huge problems. I mean, our mom. We'll mix humor and science here, but our mom was I don't even know. Oh, beyond that, I know she had well over 30 some surgeries. We were in rural healthcare. When I was 5 years old, Steve wasn't born. She cut half her foot off in a lawnmower.
Yeah.
I saw it happen.
No wonder he doesn't want to mow the lawn.
It's one of the reasons, Tommy. That ain't chicken feed. It's one of the reasons. Yeah.
But that woman spent so much damn time in the hospital, and hospitals. We had a lot of foreign medical grads that weren't very well trained. I went in one time with a dental abscess, and they told me I had hoof and mouth disease.
Really?
It's just. It's just crazy.
Is that due to the industry though, or is that due to? I'm the only Yankee here. Right. I'm not trying to dump. I live down south, so I goof on these guys, but I don't like to dunk on the Southerners in a real way, only in a funny way.
Right.
Is that because maybe? Look, sometimes these small towns, they don't have the money, and you get the money. You might get lesser doctors. Is that because it's just a poorer area? Or is that because
it depends? It's not necessarily north and south. It's rural versus city, and it's become increasingly regionalized. You have women now that have to travel almost 200 miles for a prenatal checkup.
Oh my God, I can't imagine. I've been a city boy my whole life.
Stuff like so. But in rural areas, it was always bad where we grew up. for lots of reasons. I mean, keep in mind the whole opioid epidemic started about 75 miles from where Stephen and I, our hometown.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the reason it started there was coal miners had insurance. Doctors were stupid. They could basically get them to do what they want, and they had catastrophic injuries between miners and farmers. So they needed, they were good candidates for pain pills. And so they were easy to get over on.
Yeah, sometimes I think the opioid epidemic started with Mom, honestly. She took enough opioids in the 90s to kill every horse that ever existed.
Well,
she had a pill basket. You remember? She had a pill basket that contained probably on street value more than all our assets combined.
Yeah, certainly more than that house was worth.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm also an Iraq vet, and speaking of opioids, I know 5 guys that, I mean, I don't know if their death was officially counted, but all of them were always going to sick call and always getting pain medication. And that's when I first heard about the opioid crisis. Most of those guys, I'd say 70% of them are dead now, and none of them were killed in combat.
My brother went the other way. My brother became a heroin addict.
Yeah, well, I heard that too. They go to street drugs after they get out of the army. And I know your brother was a grunt. I mean, I've heard of that happening too. And I had an experience where I had a tooth removed, a wisdom tooth removed, right? And then I got they gave me pain pills which I didn't need because the dentist had done such a good job. But then I got in trouble and I wasn't allowed to go out. So I started popping the pills, and I had no prior drug problem or anything like that. And then I think the Army and this woman, if I ever saw her again, I'd get out on my hands and knees and I'd kiss her feet or wash them too, like Christ. I went in to get my drugs, and she gave me aspirin. And I remember this feeling came over me, just completely irrational, that I wanted to like punch her in the face. My everything touched up because I realized I wasn't going to get them. And then I went home, or I went back to barracks. I freaked out, and then I realized the next day, like I was seriously thinking about doing something crazy, because I wasn't getting and it took about 24 hours. It was a hydrochloroquine or something like that. It was just a pill, right? And I realized, oh my God, I became a drug addict, and it was just that quick because they were so quick that like I didn't even need it. I just started popping the pills because I was bored and wanted to sleep because I wasn't allowed to go out with the other soldiers.
Right.
Is that the opioid crisis? Because like I said, I lost at least, I'm thinking off the top of my head is like 5 guys that died either for overdose or in their sleep. One particular guy who's half German, half American, he died in Colorado in his sleep the day after Christmas. I saw it happen.
Where it's epidemic is with kids, and both my sons have lost more than one classmate.
Oh my God.
And we live in a fairly upscale part of Atlanta.
Yeah.
And there's kids that, I mean, my oldest son, he had one of the guys that he played football with. He was more recruited than my son, and had a lot of promise, and actually signed a scholarship to play music instead of football at the University of South Carolina, and was there one semester and came back and OD'd on heroin because he couldn't afford PoloredCencils anymore.
Yeah.
And I mean, just one after another. Yeah. And it's gotten ridiculous. And now with fentanyl, that's taking a whole level because
let me tell you the actual reason why the crisis is still happening. Oxycontin, which is one of the major like pain pills back in the days, it was made by a company called Purdue Pharma, and they were found in court that they did a lot of like kickbacks, and like they would give doctors money for selling so many of them. They broke a lot of rules. So the punishment for breaking all these rules wasn't that you can't sell pain medicine anymore, or you lose your business license. It's we're going to charge you $8.3 billion and everything's good, right?
Yeah.
But they made $41 billion selling Oxycontin in the same time period. So why would they care?
Yep.
Right.
So like, there's no punishment. That's not a punishment.
Nope.
There was no accountability. And in fact, I think the physicians had a lot of accountability too. These little, teeny boppers would go in and, show them a graph that actually was manipulated. It was wrong. And the doctors would say, oh yeah, this is great. And start, writing scripts like they were handing out Halloween candy.
Well, my grandmother, God rest her soul, she's passed on now, but she was a drug dealer. she would get these things called Dilaudid. These are like a
Oh,
pain
yeah.
pill. Yeah.
Yeah.
And her doctor would write her a script for 300 a month.
Yep.
300 of them a month.
Wow.
And she didn't take them. She didn't take them. Like, she would actually go around to all her friends, which are all elderly women as well, and buy their pain pills up and then wait to the end of the month and go up $2 a pop on them.
Yeah. How
And she
could
would
you
sell.
possibly take 300 of anything in a month?
They were pushing them because they got kickback.
Yeah. That's still like 10 a day.
They knew she
How
was
do you
selling
do
them.
that?
They knew she was on the level, so they knew they could sell more of them through her or move more
Wow.
pills through her.
Wow. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I'm sure.
No wonder you're such an entrepreneur, Wings. Your mother.
The pain pill epidemic is really in me because, like, my brother, he started on Dilaudid because he called a frag grenade in Iraq, and he uses that pain to get on pain pills, and then that slowly once he couldn't afford Dilaudid anymore because they were like $7 a pop on the aftermarket, he went to like white heroin, and then white heroin got too expensive. Then he went to crack cocaine.
Unbelievable.
I mean, I won't lie. You know, I take tramadol to help with my back pain and my knee pain. And there was a hiccup, you know, with during COVID where there was like supply issues.
Yeah.
And so they weren't able to get it to me for almost like 10 days. And during that 10 days, I went through full withdrawal. And I'm telling you, on day 5, I would have robbed the place to get out of pain.
People don't
That's the
realize,
reality.
I would have thought that was insane until I experienced
You ever
it
seen the
myself.
sickness?
Ever seen what?
Like,
You ever seen somebody get sick off of them?
Well,
Tramadol.
Like they didn't get them. Like I don't know what tramadol looks like, but I know what like Dilaudid look like, and like they get sweats, they get like almost like a common cold level sick, and then they just want to retch over and die. Like they'll claw at the door until their fingernails bleed because they're in so much pain from like this withdrawal.
Well,
I
you
mean,
can die. You can die from. I mean, that's the 2 areas of withdrawal you can actually die from: alcohol and opiates. It's so severe.
Most of the time they're mixing them because like sometimes they would like crush them up and sniff them so they get into the bloodstream faster. Or they would take them by the handful and drink right behind them so it intensifies the effects.
Yep.
why does the pharmaceutical industry hate us so much? That's what it feels
Money.
like.
I don't
an
think it's that they
industry.
hate us. It's just money.
Ugh, that's awful. God.
It's more
Yeah.
like apathy. Wouldn't you say, Brian?
It's just it's any other. It's like pesticide. Like any company, if they can make money, they don't.
Well,
don't-
you said something recently. Like you said, you took the COVID vaccination, like you did it, but it was almost like you were protesting against it. Like, what's the thought process about that? Because you brought polio as an example, but like when polio first came out, the vaccine, it was in the same situation. We're like, yo, here's the fix to this problem. Everybody take it. And if we had like a kickback like we did on the COVID vaccine, polio would probably still be around. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, there was far more convincing scientific evidence, even with polio, than there is, with other diseases. And it's always a risk versus benefit assessment. And I didn't take it not because I was particularly concerned about the risk, but there were potentially no benefits for me. I'm relatively healthy, never had respiratory virus. If I'd had, someone who's immunocompromised or something, maybe I would have done, I don't know. But I wanted to wait before I would, do any of that and say, well, it was kind of like, for example, with stem cells, there's a lot of good promising stuff happening in stem cells. I waited a few years before I did it. I've got a bad hip for pain, but I wasn't going to do it until, it took some time.
I took it because I was fat.
Yeah.
I just took it because I was fat.
But it's just, it just depends on, and not every disease is the same. And, like if you looked at the mortality even early on, diseases that have bad effects and kill a lot of people early on don't last long. Usually they burn
By the
out.
way,
And
we got to do something for the YouTube algorithm. We are 100% pro-vaccine here. We're talking to them.
right. Yeah,
All 4 of us are not saying not to take
I
vaccine.
have 2
triple
shots and I got
vaccinated.
2 boosters.
We have to say that we are 100%.
Yeah, for the
pro-vaccine.
algorithm, yeah.
Yeah, for the
I will
Well,
algorithm.
also say that what I'm learning from this conversation is the fact that I got the vaccine is why I'm fat. Is that what I'm hearing, Brian?
No, that's not why you're fat. Why you're fat is
actually,
fried chicken.
it's why you're gay.
Let's get into family stuff. I got a lot of questions. First of all, what's the age difference between you two? How many
9 years.
Oh wow! It's like my son and my daughter. So it's 9 years. So you watched it. So how did you become a? What the hell went wrong with him? I mean, you're a very bright man. I mean, like you seem to know your. Unless you're just, I
The
don't know.
Virginia school system didn't fail you, but
Right,
it failed
yeah.
me.
We went to the same school,
So what happened?
I-
Was it
No, I mean,
generational?
in all honesty, Stephen is every bit as smart as me, not smarter.
That's very humble,
The-
Brian.
So he's lazy.
Now, our mom was
I'm definitely
very,
lazy,
very,
yeah.
very intelligent, but she had borderline personality disorder.
Mm.
And so, you mean, I've even read just recently stuff that she had written down and stuff. And, she was much brighter than you would have given, although didn't have as much formal education. Stephen had a lot more difficult circumstances than I did. But the time my dad was still very functional. Our dad, well, we don't know.
Yeah, I'm genuinely very certain that man cannot be my man. He is too handsome.
But you guys are
But-
you do share a likeness though. I mean, I
Right, but
can see that
the likeness is more like our mom. On our
okay.
mom's side,
Yeah.
I look very much like her dad does or
Mhm.
did. But he had much more difficult circumstances. The abuse, the situation, the housing, everything was much worse with him than me.
Was there an economic downturn for your family?
Yeah,
with your
well, primarily,
generation?
our
Dad got
dad
sick.
had encephalitis from drinking. His drinking had gotten so bad. I was a sophomore in college. No, almost a junior.
Yeah.
And I was young. I graduated when I was 17. I had a late birthday, but when I graduated, it was up to my junior year, and he became severely disabled, and so he was the only source of income. And back there, especially when it's gone, it's immediately gone.
Yeah.
So, and mom was not. I don't even think she was working at the time. She might have had part-time. Was she Head Start then?
I think, yeah, but I don't know, like, if she was earning anywhere near as much. She never made a lot at that job.
No, I
either.
mean,
It's
she made
certainly
minimum.
nowhere. It wasn't coal mine money for sure.
But immediately within a year, you all lost the house.
Yep.
It was the only house that she ever was semi-bought, and I'm not sure exactly how that transferred. We had some pretty bad housing situations, but I know she had lost the house. They moved to these god awful apartments
with the rats and the fucking roaches crawling in your ears.
Oh,
yeah.
And
I hated that place.
shit.
as her mental illness became much more pronounced later on, she was much more functional and could hide it. But later on in life, she became much worse, and she treated Stephen very different. She treated all three of us. We have a sister too. She was very more physically abusive toward our sister.
Yeah,
But
she got
much
the
more-
worst of it by a lot.
Really?
Yeah.
But she ran away and left home at 12.
Well,
Yeah.
nobody looked for her?
No,
Oh,
they
we
brought her
look-
back home a few times. Remember,
Oh my
right?
God.
But we looked for her. Yeah, we looked for her and found her. I mean, but they eventually took her out of the house, which was weird back then. They would have taken all three of us.
It is kind of strange.
Yeah, because she's only 2 years younger than me.
Well, I
But
think mom surrendered her was the difference. Like,
yeah, I think that's
yeah.
right. Yeah. But anyhow, with him, it was just much, much worse. Each worse. She became much more, and she treated him very differently because she treated him as kind of her partner, and that his job is to take care of her, which is very common with borderlines.
Yep.
Really? Go
And
ahead.
I think that's very humble of Brian too, by the way, because he went through hell with this woman too. She broke your nose, man. Like everybody said, like, it sounds like you didn't get hit at all. She beat the shit out of you.
Yeah, but it never. I don't know. I always had something else going on and I didn't. I don't know. I mean, it's never abuse is never good, but she also was, equally motivational, and I mean, in ways that was functional too, that she never was with.
I got a question.
Yeah.
Like, did the dad not do any of the punishment?
My dad may have spanked me one time, and that's a good story we can tell in a minute. But
Yeah.
um,
Well, I'm just saying because it seems like she hit you. Like I come from a family in the South, and usually the woman would delegate like the physical punishment to the father figure.
no,
Not in our
dad.
household. Dad was getting the shit beat out of him.
You know,
by that woman.
we were always told that he used to be very violent towards her and all that. Um, my whole life, I never saw it, and I saw her. I mean, she broke his leg one time with a hammer. She
Oh
broke,
my!
With a hammer, like a roofing hammer, like when it was.
no, just a regular hammer. She broke
Yeah,
his tibia and fibula, you know, the shin, but which is very hard to break. Period. And I mean,
he let her do it.
I saw him take a lot of physical abuse from her. Never. He really was. You know, he was a Marine and all that stuff, but he was not a violent person. I
Just because you're in the military doesn't make you a violent person
yeah.
automatically.
But he, you know, he would talk that persona, but he was never ever, and he was very passive. And like he grew up on a farm where they had to slaughter animals, and he wouldn't hunt. He wouldn't, you know, it wasn't in his nature. But
I got to interrupt you. I play with my beard too, but the problem is you're touching your microphone every so often.
sorry.
No, it's
Yeah.
okay, but I do it too, so
Yeah.
don't worry about it.
Yeah.
But go
Yeah.
ahead. No, please finish up.
But yeah, and so a long story, he didn't, and I think we resented that a lot because there was nobody in to protect us in that regard, and she was by far scarier. You know, both emotionally and physically. That you know he wouldn't have, not even close.
What
You
was
think
it?
it's an underlying health condition or something like that that caused her to want to hit on people? Because at some point, your dad had to see something in your mother that he enjoyed and liked. Like, what was the change?
You know, it's funny because I've read her diaries when she was like 15, and she would talk about dad, and it's not a whole lot of writing and stuff, but at the time she'd come from, her dad was doing much better financially. They come from Eastern Kentucky, and he was kind of considered, you know, poor folks. His dad was, you know, and they were different economic class. And so I'm sure, and she was pretty, she was an attractive woman and all this, and you know, messed up women, as Steven and I can tell you, can be very attractive. Crazy women.
Yeah.
Um,
How many times? How many
It
times?
feels like home.
How many times have you
Yeah.
married Brian? How many times have you been married, Brian?
I've been married twice. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. So yeah, I know what I'm talking about.
But yeah, and so yeah, I think there was something there. You know, he was an alcoholic, but it was always kind of a functional alcoholic until towards the end.
Yeah.
And so I think so long as she didn't disrupt him drinking, he was gonna be. And
fine.
plus, he worked his ass off. I mean, he worked. You know, coal miners work hard, and he was there. He would do usually, and I know he did this on purpose, but work night shifts. So he would be gone when she was home.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
you know, too, like in the military too, there's so much, like, it's a weird unspoken pressure to like work hard, and play hard means drinking. And if you stop drinking, even though like you're gonna get so much in trouble for DWI or this, we're gonna do this to you, that to you, you're kind of expected, if you want like socially and really to climb the ranks, you're expected to be able to go get slosh and then wake up the next day and run. And if you can't, you're weak. And it's not like somebody says that to you. And I wonder with being a coal miner and being a Marine, that it's like doubled over. Like, yeah, like this is what a man does. He drinks on the weekends and then he works hard all week. And I know that mentality, and it can kill you. It kills you young, usually.
Well, a coal miner will kill you, period.
Yeah, that'll kill you,
Yeah,
period.
yeah.
But he's got all that brainwash, all that Marine bullshit. I mean, I got all that Army bullshit. I still got it in me. I can't even get rid of it.
I mean, it's a damn miracle that Dad didn't die in the mines. You remember he got pinned under a boulder at one point. Am I remembering that correct, Brian?
No. My favorite story about Dad's injuries. Dad grew up, his father had become a Church of Christ minister, Pentecostal, and they were hardcore. You know, you pray it through, kind of thing. And so Dad wouldn't go to the damn hospital to save his life. And I came home one night after football practice, and Dad was home, which was unusual. And I was an EMT, and I was about 15 or 16, and I'd seen all sorts of trauma, but I look over and my dad has black electrical tape around his finger. And I said, "What's wrong?" He said, "I hurt my damn finger." I said, "What do you mean you hurt it?" He said, I closed it in a bradish door. It's like a big, solid metal door that shuts off sections of the mines, if I recall correctly. He goes, "I smashed it in there." And I said, "Well, let me take a look at it."
It fell off.
Damn near.
Oh, God.
We start pulling the tape off. He's about 4 or 5 beers into his Pabst Blue Ribbon 6-pack. And he was never a big man. You know, he was always kind of skinny, oddly enough.
Yeah.
That's why he can't be Steven's dad. But
Right,
but
exactly.
I looked at, and there's like basically one blood vessel and one ligament holding it on. And I said, "You gonna go to the doctor?" And he's like, "Nah." He goes, I'll be fine. Good Lord willing." I said, "Dad, I don't think the good Lord's going to do shit about that." We got him, and you'd have to travel literally like the close hospital is like 45 minutes.
Yeah.
By car. And we got him. He was in surgery for like hours. And just to get they should have cut it off, but he wouldn't let him cut him off. And the rest of his life, I swear to God, he walked around with his pinky sticking out because he was completely immobile.
Oh,
but
no.
they would have injuries like that, and they didn't. A lot of times, and sometimes they do it on purpose to get money, because if you cut off, he had a guy when he was a foreman cut off 3 of his fingers on purpose. Because you got like $10,000 a finger or something like that back then.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah, watch it happen.
He owed somebody a bookie or something.
He grabbed what they call a trolley wire, you know, the little cars that would take him in and out of the mines. He grabbed it, and it was a smart way to do it because it cauterized it. These are electrical lines, and it just.
Oh my God! Oh.
Yeah.
So speaking about crazy stuff, what do you think about Boogie's current girlfriend?
It's the only one he hasn't shown me naked pictures of yet.
Yay!
Oh, you are a doctor.
Here's your memory exam.
When
did you first realize Boogie was a little retarded? About what age?
Yeah, he was always funny as hell. But the best thing we ever did.
But yeah.
But the thing that I taught him to talk like Elmer Fudd.
Yeah, you still mad about that.
And just because he was easy to fuck with.
Yeah, gullible. Yeah. And so for literally 4 years old, I'm walking around going, "Yeah, mama's into into lemons womb for some reason. What is wrong with you?"
That's funny.
It wasn't until Mom started threatening us that we both he and his sister, we had to start making him talk right, because I'd get him to ask for some women pie.
Some women pie, yeah.
Women pie. But
I spent the last 6 years asking for a lot of women pie, for the record. Just
with your financial situation, how did you get through medical school? Did you do the scholarships?
Well, I did PhD, not MD. But it was I had some.
Still, it costs money. I mean, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, but I didn't incur, especially my generation, didn't incur as much debt. I went to a state institution, and for the first, I had a little bit of money. I had a track scholarship, which paid for basically books. Not much now because I was a white sprinter. But I got some Pell Grants and stuff like that. It was always semester to semester, because Mom would say she paid the bill and clearly had not.
Yeah, never.
I didn't really have to I took out some loans, but once you get into graduate school, we got stipends, and then doctoral programs, you don't usually have to pay for your tuition. You get a tuition deferral, but you get like teaching stipends and things like that. But I was poor for a long damn time. But I grew up so poor. When I went to school, I actually felt like I was making money.
Yep.
Compared, like my apartment, everything was nicer than what Steven was at. I had some level of health insurance, something. So for me, it wasn't nearly as difficult.
Yeah,
Going
I
through
remember
that.
you. Remember you let me stay with you for a weekend a couple times up in Blacksburg. And the first time I remember seeing your apartment and seeing like your roommate's computer, and you took me to like an arcade, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is like New York. This is the most magical place I've ever seen." It's like those places on television where people aren't miserable all the time. I would like to be here one day.
What other jokes did you play on Boogie? Tell me some stories.
Oh, during that trip, he forced me to eat venison for the first time.
Well,
And I cried about it.
Why? You told us Bambi or something, or
No, you remember you fed me you told me it was like a regular hamburger, and it was a venison burger. And I told you I didn't want to eat like hunted meat because I had that inclination that Dad had. I really care about animals. And you're like, no, it's just a regular burger. And then afterwards you're like, it's venison. And I bawled like a baby.
well, you eating cows? What's the difference, you weirdo?
I don't know.
No, go to McDonald's instead.
But the first movie I ever saw was Bambi. Maybe that was it. I don't know.
Your dad cared about animals, but he's a coal miner. Don't they use like canaries to like test if there's gas?
Yeah,
in the
he
mine
wasn't a
and shit
coal
like that?
miner in the 20s. Jesus Christ! How old do you think my dad was?
I don't know anything about coal
Oh.
mining. I know it's deep, it's dark, and it's miserable.
Oh man.
Well, I've got a good story though about his hunting. I'll get back to the jokes we played. When he was young, I really didn't play jokes on him very much because he got picked on a lot.
Yeah.
And so I was really mean to his sister, comparatively, but not to him. And because it was pretty,
He's a baby.
it was like piling on
Yeah.
at that point.
Yeah,
But,
pretty much, yeah.
But getting back to my dad, my mom had a number of our mom. I keep saying we know it's our mom, so
Yeah, it's our mom. Everybody
Yeah.
knows. I mean, yeah.
Uh,
That one
but
we're sure of.
but she had always had like little affairs and stuff growing up,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Steven's talked about. But one she was having when I was quite young. Steven wasn't even born, and she had decided that the guy who was actually one of my dad's best friends, she was going to have him kill him on a hunting trip. And so I remember this. I vividly remember this, and for lots of reasons. But they were going to go hunting out on like a local farm, maybe just a few miles away, and the guy's name was Lawrence Skidmore. And I'm sure he's not alive anymore, so I'm sure we can use it. But he reminded me of the deputy in Dukes of Hazzard.
Which one? The
Roscoe
Green,
Pico
yes.
train.
Roscoe Pico.
Kind of like
train.
that really like drawn out. And we went to go rabbit hunting, and my dad was actually a hell of a shot. They was going to put him in sniper school and all this stuff.
Oh, really?
He shot a rabbit. Well, they didn't count on me going with them.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy told my mom afterwards that he couldn't do it because I was there.
Oh,
And that's what supposedly stopped my dad from getting shot. But what I remember about the trip is that I told Dad to put the rabbit back, that we're not taking the rabbit home. And I'll be damned if he didn't do it. I remember putting a bloody rabbit back in the hole. What was left of the rabbit. I think he shot it with a damn 30-06 or something. But yeah, he put that rabbit back.
That's like the southern way to whack somebody, I guess. Take them on a hunting trip.
Oh, it was Dateline before Dateline. I mean, it was like,
Yeah.
who knows what else he did. When he had his encephalitis, he had incredibly high levels of lead in his system at the VA. Because I remember talking to the VA doctor, and she blamed it on, and she was very adamant about blaming it. I don't think I've even said this to you, Stephen. She's very adamant about blaming it on moonshine he'd got at the mines, because they all would drink moonshine.
Yeah.
But Dad was a Kentucky boy. There's no way in hell he would have drank moonshine and gone through a car radiator, because that's where they get the lead. And there's no way that someone would be stupid enough, you would have heard about it, to try to poison a bunch of coal miners, because they'd have killed you.
Yeah.
They'd have found out about it, and you know. they'd end up killing you. Plus, it wasn't like copper was expensive back then. So I think it's possible she could have poisoned him too.
That seems very, very much like her MO, to have not only wanted him dead, but then to fuck it up in the end, which is so weird because he was so loyal. Why was he so loyal to her? I've never understood that. With all the cheating, with the physical abuse, with all of that, what the fuck was in his head?
It was just the way he was taught and the way he was brought up. I mean, he was, all that forced religion. It was just what you did.
Because Jason, his dad, right? That's Jason. The one.
No, his dad was Elijah.
Okay,
his
Jesus,
middle name was Stephen might be retarded.
Yeah. No, one of the biggest issues I run into on this show and elsewhere is my memories of all of this are so drastically, like sometimes just completely off, which I guess isn't that uncommon for people with the level of child abuse we have, but it doesn't seem like you have it. So I don't know.
Well,
maybe I am retarded.
There was more people to corroborate things that, we were more extended family around, things like that would remind you of some of these things. You all became increasingly isolated as the years went by. So you didn't have people that you would talk to about it or things like that.
So I want to go back to something you said recently. You said Boogie sent you a lot of naked pictures of the girls he messed with. So how many of the girls did he send naked pictures of?
I don't know if I could count. I don't know if it was necessarily
that was something that was actually happening. Boogie's over here paying these girls and he's snapping pictures of them.
I mean, I wasn't sending private photos. This is stuff that's like on
this was fully within their. No, there was nothing beyond.
I'm
and in fact, I'm pretty sure they were drumming up other business.
Exactly. It's free advertising at that point.
Yeah, there was nothing private. I never saw anything of his wife or anything like that.
No, but you were definitely there for most of my hoe phase. What did you think about that? I mean, obviously you knew it was self-destructive, but like I'm always curious, like what was that like on the other side of that?
I'm no damn position to judge. I was just as much a hoe. Just a different preference and different access.
You didn't pay for it though, so I'm a big
difference. Well,
you always pay for it.
We pay for it one way or the other. Trust me.
That's true.
It's either yours is a much more honest transaction. I've always felt bad because I always felt like neither one of us would have a shot at finding or being with the same. And I've been with sane women, and I'm not good with them.
It's kind of boring, honestly. At best, it's boring. But then if they're perfectly like normal, healthy, and sane, I don't feel like I fucking belong there. It makes me miserable. I become like so self-loathing. I'm like, why the f- do they get to be happy? Why the f- do they have a family they talk to? Why aren't
you happy, Boogie? Like you play.
I'm pretty happy now, but like for the majority of my life, anytime I dated a relatively healthy person, I was fucking miserable. Can you relate to that, Brian, at all?
Yeah, I mean, because we didn't even have any idea what normal was.
No.
And I think there's an indication, when you're like that, you try to mimic what they're doing or try to be like they are, and you just don't. There's no way. And I've dated all sorts of different types of women that, I think we were ill-suited for that type of relationship. I think it's hard enough. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Let's talk about how retarded Boogie is. Like, did Boogie not interact with you at all when he was making his financial mistake investing in crypto?
Oh, yeah. He kept trying to get me to do the same thing. And,
I did. I really did.
And, I know. But not because I had some great insight that he didn't or something, but I wasn't going to be, the difference between me too is I had kids. To take care of, and I'm not gonna, do something that will be that high risk. I mean, I warned him against stupid stuff.
Yeah.
And
I never pay attention, but you warned me.
But I was far less concerned about that. I always thought he would get some woman that would try to like blackmail him or something. They kind of have.
He did.
He
did.
No.
But that's that I got more worried about that, or somebody claimed you or something like that.
I mean, with the way I'm built, good luck. You would get mushed to death before any sex would happen. So good luck with that, ladies. But no, I did have one say that I emotionally abused her, which I guess if you're going to tell stories out of school, go nuts. But I barely knew that girl, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that kind of stuff, I was worried about Steven very early on, because before he became big on YouTube, I mean, he was struggling. And,
Going back, oh, sorry, go ahead. I apologize.
No, but he had lived with me, and the woman married for a very brief period of time, and he actually at that time, I don't know if he told you, he lost a lot of weight.
Yeah, about 75 pounds. Yeah. And it was all because of you.
He wasn't that big at the time. He wasn't nearly as big as he'd gotten.
I was about
that big. I mean,
350, and you got me. I was like 375. You got me right at 300 or under 300.
And
you got a picture of that, Boogie?
I don't take. Yeah, I had like no way to take.
I might have one somewhere, but if I do, I'll send it. But he couldn't handle being normal at that point. I mean, he was, he went from not being able to do anything. But that's when I was most worried about him. Right after he left me, because he was in a horrible state of mind and didn't have a lot of resources, and then wouldn't accept my help. And not that I could help him that much. I mean, I wouldn't make it, but
yeah.
So Boogie, I got a question for you. Like, when you get 300 pounds and you're normal and you're unhappy about this, like what was the journey like from 300 pounds to disabled to almost 600?
I mean, I found World of Warcraft. I found a game called EverQuest and then World of Warcraft.
Oh, great.
And I played them for like 8 years in a row. And then I woke up one day and I'm like, wow, I can't see my dick anymore. I mean, that's what that was like.
You literally got from South Park.
You literally sat there and played video games and ate.
Yeah, for 7 or 8 years. Yeah.
Like, how did you fiscally able to support that, just to be able to sit in one place for 8 years? And
they delivered food to the front door. I would still go out to the grocery a couple days a week.
How did you do it, Fatso?
Yeah, how do you do it? Right?
My heaviest is 470. Like, that's Boogie's walking around weight.
Yeah, no shit, actually.
Going back to what you said about the
I can tell you how I did it, Tommy. Mine was from a fall. Like, I was about 330 my whole life, and then I fell and hurt my back.
You were always fat then.
And well, yeah, I was always a big boy, but like I wasn't like a massively big boy until I hurt my back, and then I started YouTube.
Yeah, same thing happened to me. I got hit by that car when I was 23, 24, 25. I don't know. But we got T-boned, and it up my back. Went in to get x-rays. They basically could see nothing wrong with it. They could barely see the bones in the x-ray because I was so fat. And that was it. Yeah, I've never really walked right again.
Going back to the woman thing, I thought that was kind of interesting. I got a question for the doctor. I guess with the old Oedipus complex, you marry your mother. I've kind of seen examples of that through my life. But I always wondered, do you really marry your mother, or do you marry somebody that reminds you of home? And you fall in love with somebody because this feels like when you're a kid, subconsciously. And if the reason you guys aren't attracted to the same women, because it just doesn't feel like home, because home is chaotic. Do you think there's any truth to that, Doc?
Yeah, I think it's true. I mean, there's some people also say you marry to complete your childhood, to get stuff that you didn't get at home.
That's the truth of that.
There's a lot of stuff that
all of us.
Yeah, no shit.
But there's a lot of people. I mean, I know I dated a lot of women that were very different than my mom, and I was purposely. I mean, 'cause she was very trashy acting and things like that at times, that I couldn't stand that in a woman. But there were certain things that she was extremely loyal to us, and at least in public. I got thrown out of a football game one time. I got 15 yards of penalties, and she got 30 more. And almost an assault charge.
Yeah.
So those are the kind of things. So I crave that kind of stuff. And like you see, the complacency, like if stuff you're bored, you were never bored with her.
Yeah.
You're always on guard. And so, yeah, there's a little of that, but it's, it just depends. I don't know. I don't think anybody can. It's like, if you're a vet, nobody understands war unless you've been through it.
Nobody understands the army unless you go. Nobody prepared me for it. Even guys that seen combat, like nobody, He did their best. I'm sure nobody told me a bad thing, but you don't know until you go.
No, No,
So
and you
Boogie,
can't.
what,
You can
what
describe
part
it.
of
And
Desi
everything
do you
else.
see in your mother?
Oh well, let Brian finish though, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
I think it's
No,
not a
I'm just
good one.
saying you can tell people about it. You can paint vivid pictures, and they might have some relate, but they don't know. No, go ahead,
Yeah.
Steve. I'm sorry.
Yeah. What was your question, Jordy?
What part of your mother do you see in Desi?
You know, if I'm being genuine, and I probably should never be this genuine, Desi's about as far away from Wanda Faye as humanly possible, both mentally and physically and emotionally. The thing that I see the most in Desi is an opportunity to help someone the way Brian helped me, the way Chad helped me.
Oh, this is a bad one, Boogie.
I mean, it's the truth of the matter is, like, if Brian had not given me a place to stay to move to Fayetteville, Arkansas, I would have not had the life I have now. He extended his home and extended his life to me and gave me that opportunity. And I wanted to do that for Desi, as well as the fact that, you know, I do have strong emotions for her, but I felt like it was an opportunity to be the person I
His
needed.
father was a fuck up.
Do what?
I mean, like, Tommy said you always marry your mother.
No, I've been told that.
Kelly is not my mother.
No.
Like, my mother is selfish and like she smoked, 2 packs.
Yeah,
a day.
but I'm not talking about personality traits. I'm talking about, does she provide something that reminds you of home? Not like if you're attracted. If your mother's chaotic, no, I got to, because you put some words in my mouth. If your mother's chaotic and you're used to the chaos, she can be trashy, which Brian finds unattractive, or she could be eloquent. You can still be both those things and completely chaotic. That's what I'm saying. If they provide the home that you're familiar with, regardless of any kind of individual personality trait.
Well, my point is this: I believe my wife married her father.
Yeah,
because I am exactly like her father. I'm cheap.
Yeah.
I'm usually pretty dependable, that kind of thing. I'm wondering if Desi sees in Steven her father.
Everybody does.
I'd say to some degree. I do know that she's had bigger family members that were very gentle and kind to her at points, and I think maybe that's why she's a little blind to my size issues. But I don't know about beyond that. But I will say, without doxing any of the women I ever dated, I'm not going to tell you who specifically this is. I dated women that physically looked like mom, and I now no longer can. I don't like, if I was single tomorrow and the biggest girl, the richest, most attractive fat girl showed up my front door and said, "Let me take you away from all this," I would tell her no, because I will not ever be physically attracted to a heavy woman again. And then I've dated women that were just bipolar, and I've dated women that were emotionally angry as shit. And I'll be honest with you, living with women like that was fun for a while. It really was. I was into it because, like, anytime I have an experience like I've had with the last year with Desi, back then this is too fucking boring. All we do is we play video games and we are happy together and we eat good food and we have good experiences and we just enjoy each other's company and we're building a life together. 25-year-old me would have hated that. I would have been out of my mind miserable. And Brian, I'm sure you've had some wild experiences with women, without doxing you here, but like, I feel like you definitely tried it out too, right?
From just listening, I feel like Brian's first marriage happened before he got his doctorate and everything like that. Is that valid?
Yeah, it happened right as we lived together. It's a long story beyond the podcast, but she was a Jewish girl from Philadelphia, very nice person. I mean, but I really didn't want to get married, but I felt so guilty. I thought she was going to kill herself if I told her. I went bungee jumping the week before my my marriage, hoping I'd fall. I was miserable. I started having.
What I was saying is, like, I just don't see you losing the type of money Steven lost in his first marriage.
No, money wise, I always married people with a lot more money than me. The family,
he married up.
Good move.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily on purpose or anything like that. My ex-wife, her dad was a very, very successful surgeon. She came from an extremely wealthy background, and that was a big source of conflict in parenting. But because we just had no common ground in terms of some of that, but no, I never. If I was going to risk money or do it was because of my temper. that's the thing that I had that Steven didn't. He had a temper, but it was always inside. You know, he'd always be more self-destructive than outer destructive.
He's more passive aggressive than you too. Let me tell you.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yeah, but it's more manipulation that we grew up with, and it's just almost then part of our genome. But he didn't do those kind of risky things. If he was going to risk something, it'd be something that he was trying to help somebody or do something like that. But it wouldn't be me. It's just because I'm in a fight or I'm going to bust in the house or something like that.
So you're right. Like you grew up as a man, and Boogie grew up gay.
You're not wrong.
Well, but like, she really did try to feminize him in a lot of ways, and because
it worked.
But I mean, because making him. I mean, everybody talks about his choices, but as a kid, he didn't have much choice of what he ate and how he ate and what she brought home to him and made him eat. I mean, she really purposely wanted him fat. Because that meant he would be dependent on her. And so she purposely disabled him. There's no doubt in my mind.
So Boogie's not lying.
Do you ever get the curly hair?
He's not lying.
Well, the curly hair is why we think we definitely have different fathers.
Yeah, I was looking at him like, y'all might be onto something. You might have a different father, Boogie.
Oh, yeah. I 100% believe that.
My brother's blonde hair. That's not necessarily 100%.
I will say, like Brian said, Mom pretty much always had a side piece. When it came along, you remember Danny's uncle, Johnny, right? Like she was banging him after Dad got sick. And that was actually like one of the longest relationships she had during my lifetime. She was with him almost as long as she was with healthy Dad. But but absolutely. I would be surprised if all three of us have the same father. That would be a miracle.
Y'all literally had Jerry Springer at home.
Yeah.
You had a skinny alcoholic father and like an overweight like mother.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
And it was just the opposite. I mean, you have to keep it. We grew up where y'all know the South. We grew up. You couldn't let anybody know anything.
No.
It wasn't until Steven got much older that people started to see because she couldn't control it anymore.
I couldn't control it anymore. I mean, like one of my junior year or senior year, I ended up like picking up a desk and throwing it at the window, breaking the window in high school because no one would fucking help us, dude. Like, I don't understand. And I eventually wrote Miss Wall, God bless her, one of the best teachers I had. I don't know what your relationship was like with her, but if it was bad, she made it up with me. But I wrote her on Facebook one time and I'm, did you guys know? And she's like, yeah, we knew, but we did everything we could. Right? There's only so much they could do.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's not like they can take care of you. What are they gonna?
But I was like, I was livid. I threw myself out of a moving car once too.
You're judging it by different standards because it was a different time. You didn't mess in kind of the province of someone's family, especially in the South. You didn't. That was a good way to get killed.
I believe that.
And especially my generation, maybe a little bit more with yours, but that's a reason. There are almost no cases of. I mean, I know of a lot of people that are getting abused, and especially by definitions that we would use now. But nobody's going to say a damn thing. I mean, I watched my friends.
Me and Boogie are pretty close in age, and I think our generation was the first that actually even. And in some ways, that's another podcast too. Probably made it worse, but they were the only. I think in the '80s, people were trying to actually fight back against that. Whereas, like when my dad was growing up. It wasn't abuse; it was family, And by the time the '80s rolled around, they started realizing, no, this is really fucking people up, and they tried to do stuff about it. And it actually, in some ways, it made it worse, taking kids out of their house, people jumping the gun, people trying to virtue signal, and actually making it worse for families.
And Southwest Virginia was always like 15 years behind the rest of the world culturally, like even in terms of like music and hairstyles and everything else. So in terms of we didn't really get caught up on that till I was well out of it.
I noticed that when I lived down there because I lived over at it was Augusta, Georgia, Fort Gordon.
So Boogie, like how old would you say the house you grew up in was? Like what year do you think it was built?
I mean, we moved constantly. How old was that house in Castlewood though, Brian?
The house that we spent most of the time in together. Was an old farmhouse built in the 1800s.
Because in my head, I picture an old shotgun style house that barely had plumbing.
No, Virginia didn't typically have that. Those are much more southern. I know what you're talking about. That style of house.
Yeah.
We had the house the most miserable place that we ever lived was the house in Castlewood, and we were there for about. You were there for about 6-7 years.
Right.
I was there for about 5, but that house was built in the late 1800s. Had single pane windows, baseboard heating. I mean, the average temperature inside during that time was probably in the winter was in maybe 40s. I mean, we froze. It was just horrible, and half of the house was shut off because she'd broken the windows out of it and stuff like that. I remember you touch the stove and it'd shock you, the current.
Yeah.
All right, we're an hour in. We got to get to the funny stuff. Let's go to.
Get to the good stuff. Okay,
Yeah, that's not funny.
You can throw it to the fucking.
You grab a stove and your feet are wet.
It shocked the shit out of you.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
That shit was funny.
Not bad.
There is like a very dark humor about when like Carla got stabbed at the Thanksgiving dinner table.
What?
Like,
all right, talk. Come on, you got to do one at a time. You got to tell the whole story. Come on.
Yeah, Brian, you tell that one.
Let's tell stories.
You remember better.
On rare occasions, our family did have some decorum. On holidays, she actually was always different. She was giving. She did all these. She acted like a regular mom for most of the time.
Yep.
Except one Thanksgiving, she was always harder on my sister, as I said before, and she would make her do chores that it was kind of typical. Women did this, boys did this, but she made her clean the dishes or wash the dishes. We didn't have a dishwasher or anything, of course, and she'd wash the dishes, and she found a speck of food on the plate. Probably no bigger than your thumb, just tiny that got stuck there or something. And she starts cursing her out. And they're screaming, and they're fighting, they're going at it. And Mom's tendency was to throw whatever the hell was next to her. It's like that old Eddie Murphy routine,
That's what he said.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
But in her case, it usually was much worse.
Yeah.
And the worst was those damn ashtrays. Those ashtrays that were made like cinder blocks, glass ones. You remember those? Like,
I remember them.
Those things. If you caught one of those, you had brain damage. But she threw a steak knife at her.
Oh my God!
And I was sitting right beside her. It barely missed me. And she was standing up. She was trying to get warm by the baseboard heating. And she was standing up, and it stuck about 1.5 inches in her thigh.
Oh my God!
Wow.
Merry Christmas.
And I just remember it was Thanksgiving, but I just remember. I remember going, "Did that just happen?" I mean, I'd seen her do a lot of shit, but that was the worst.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
And
attempted murder,
And then you're left with, what do you do now?
You got it.
Because I mean, I think I was
pressure
old enough.
wound?
I was probably an EMT at the time. I can't remember exactly how old, but she couldn't have been any older than 12 or so, but she was old enough. And I remember thinking, well, you're not supposed to remove these, but I know we can't go to the doctor.
Right.
Yeah.
So what do you do? And so I'm the one that has to remove the damn knife. And I just remember, I'm just afraid it's hit at the time I should have known better, but it hit a blood vessel or something. And so I took it out, and luckily it had not hit anything major.
Yeah.
It wasn't deep enough in the thigh, and she was still big. But I was like, this is it. We're all going to jail now, because she would have easily blamed it on one of us.
Yeah. For sure.
Because she even immediately after that called her grandfather, or her dad, who I was very close with, but he was also complicit in her behavior, and told her that Carla attacked him, so she had to stab her.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
That's not exactly how it went down. No.
Oh, Jesus.
But
I mean, you got to wonder, like, with your situation, I understand times are different. Like I said, I'm close to Steve's age, so I have some idea what you're talking about. It sounds like you guys, the state probably should have stepped in and took you guys away.
Probably.
yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
But and I can honestly tell you, even though it's really, really bad right now, our situation would have been worse.
It probably would have been. Yeah.
In state foster care, particularly in Virginia. And
Yeah.
I don't know how many foster families that Carla had been through, but it was several. And kids go through multiple placements like that. I was scared of that.
You haven't talked to Carla as an adult. She has no positive stories about that time in her life. It was all bad.
Is she? You guys still in contact with her? Do you still talk to her?
I talk to her maybe once a year or so. Hi, Carla, if you see this, by the way. I talk to her maybe once a year or so.
I didn't. I tried to regain contact with her, and it was more difficult because Mom always made us adversaries. She would always try to get me to hit Carla and do stuff like that.
Oh my God.
And would always pit me against Carla. But with Steven, it wasn't that way. She was more of his caretaker in a way. And
that was the baby. So yeah, she always told me she's the one I wasn't going to fuck up, or that she wouldn't fuck up. Surprise, Mom, you failed. But she was
hey,
like,
Mom, if you're watching this.
yeah. I don't know if they have internet in hell, but
if they do, it's dial up. She's just getting that.
At least you don't have. At least you can get her menthol cools lit really easy.
but yeah. So I never tried to. I tried, and then I also had kids, and my kids couldn't understand it at all. I mean, they didn't, and I was always worried because her kids got into a lot of trouble and stuff. So I was, it made me feel I had horrible survivor's guilt over it. I mean, I did even with Steven too, because I felt like I couldn't help him.
Probably couldn't. But I mean, but at the end of the day, you did though, right? Like, I mean, obviously I struggled, but I think I did way better than I thought we were going to, right? Like this is pretty good happy ending in my opinion.
He got famous and
you're the reason I made it to Northwest Arkansas. You're one of the reasons I lived the life I lived, Brian. Like if you hadn't stepped in as an adult, I tell you this every time, but I want to give you public props because again, you changed the course of my life. If I had stayed in Southwest Virginia, I'm certain I'd be dead. Yeah. By now.
Well, but I also kept that dog from biting the rest of your penis off, if you remember.
Oh yeah, you got to tell that story. A dog bit me in the dick, everybody, and I still pee sideways.
The dog's name was Sweet Pea, oddly enough, and he's out there playing with his diaper, and a damn thing bit him on the dick.
Oh God!
Bit through my dick.
Bit through his dick, and oddly enough, that's the one thing that my mom almost went to jail for.
What?
And she didn't do it.
And she didn't even do it. Yeah. No, because they thought she did that to me.
They thought she did it. They had done it. And so that's the one thing. It was because it was a stupid doctor, but they thought it was her. And I was like, nope, there was a dog.
Did they put Sweet Pea down? I always feel like I don't know what happened to that dog.
It's hard to stay funny when you keep asking me questions like this, but
oh God, okay, yeah.
No, our landlord poisoned that dog.
Oh, that's funny. True. See, that is funny. Actually, that is funny.
Well,
so what do you hate the most about Steven?
Oh yeah.
I
don't think
that's a good question.
Really?
That I'm not as gay as you, and you wish I was. Is that it?
I hate the fact that we share the same darkness because it's very problematic for both of us to, we've both gone through suicidal ideation and stuff like that. And all we do when we talk to each other sometimes is reinforce that shitty attitude.
Yeah.
And so you want a family, you want a family member that says, "Hey, I got you. You know, I can do this." Mine is, "Hey, have you done it yet?"
Right, yeah, every single day. Like literally, I'll realize I haven't talked to Brian in like 2 or 3 weeks, and I'm like, "You still alive, or did you finally find the balls?" You know, and like that's
Oh,
just
God.
that's literally our text change for the last decade.
But I hate that part about it. I mean, and I don't hate him, but I hate the fact that that's part of him, and there's not anything we can do about it.
It sounds like you blame yourself a lot. There's nothing you could have done. You're a sibling. You had to make your way in your own life. You were very
Yeah,
successful
exactly. Yeah.
under incredibly bad circumstances. He credits you for like, all right, like all the mistakes he made, he did himself. And here's the thing: I think I've known Boogie for close to a year now. He loved being famous. Absolutely
Yeah.
loved it. He loved
Yeah,
it. It
hell
wouldn't
yeah.
happen without you.
He still thinks he is.
I know, Jordy. I'm infamous now. It's very different. It's
No,
very
he loved
different.
being famous. So I mean, you could look at it that way. You could say, "All right, this is where we fucked up and stuff like that." But you're breathing. But I can see a situation where you both are, because he does this to us, talking about dark stuff, and it's not really helping. One of the things I learned from Europeans is European men are a lot different than men. And me and Boogie grew up, talk about your feelings, right?
Oh, yeah.
And European men are like the other extreme, especially the Irish and the English. We talk about anything, ever, and it eats them alive, and they die young for that reason. Here's the thing, like, I think honestly, because we have this idea, and I think there's something to it. Sharing your feelings, get them out in the open, is a better way to deal with them, and rather than stuffing everything down, because that can kill you too. But there's a happy medium there somewhere. You know, laying your trauma on everybody is not helpful to you.
No,
Yeah.
and I if I had to say anything, the only thing he's ever put out that I objected to probably was that documentary.
Yeah, I would have objected to that too.
Because I don't think it was authentic. I think often I know when Steven's being authentic and when he's not.
You can tell, sure.
And he's actually funnier when he's authentic.
Be authentic.
I'm trying. I don't know, but Brian, I think you might be able to relate to this. I don't know what authentic me's like.
Oh, I know. I'm not saying it. Yeah. I don't think you know it when you are.
You slip into the funny fat guy role every time.
Yeah, but I mean, on top of that, we had to hide in plain sight our entire childhood, and so we had to make it look like we weren't dying inside. And you just learn how to fake all the time.
But the truth is, like when you get on, like we get on Twitch or something, you're authentic because it's stream of consciousness kind of stuff, and you're just doing it.
Yeah,
are we joking?
Yeah, but that's also what his career up. He used to be Mr. Rogers, and then they learned that he was a sex pervert.
Well, they did not like my dark sense of humor, but I mean, Brian has the same sense of humor. Probably not with all the racist jokes.
You courted a lot of woke assholes, and I don't.
I really did.
Yeah, you courted a lot of woke. And the thing is, you can be funny. The problem is when you court them and you're like, that's your community. And then you tell I wouldn't even say a racist joke because racist jokes aren't funny. Off-color jokes are funny.
Borderline.
Borderline or something edgy or something like that. They're so sort of in tuned. I don't even know. I don't know what the word.
Tommy's being woke because he just said racist jokes aren't funny.
Yeah,
you're
so
hilarious.
All right. Hateful jokes aren't funny. If you're just talking about little Jews, they got burned in the oven there. Ha ha ha. That's not funny. But
that's not funny. But there are funny racist jokes.
Yeah. Well, there's something would be called racist. We're splitting hairs here.
But something he would say to me that would crack me up. And of course, he'd tell me the story when Mom was swinging at him with a hammer, and all he could think about was, "Don't f up my Star Wars
Garfield."
Garfield.
Garfield.
That's funny.
In the side of the head, and the one thing I was worried about was the gift Danny could afford me.
Or the time Mom threw him out of the car and he busted open, or he fell on the stairs and you could see the bone in his leg. And our Coach Fletcher, who died actually just recently, by the way.
Oh, that sucks. Coach Fletcher.
97 years old. But he goes, "Hey, you want to see something?" He took my brother in the room and showed him his bone in his leg. He said, "You see the bone?"
He let me touch it.
That is funny. And then the story he told, the only advice I ever got from my dad about women was I'd ask him, I was like, he was aboard ship for most of his Marine Corps. He'd gone to Eastern Europe and stuff. And I said, I said, what it was like? I was just getting drunk, getting pussy. And I said, well, I said, what, what was it like? And he said, let me tell you something, son. He goes, don't ever be nice to women. He goes, if you get a girl, treat her like shit, she's always going to come back. And he told me some story of a bartender that he'd messed around on. She found out in Germany, actually. And when he went into the bar, she dumped a pitcher of beer on his head, and he goes, pour me another beer. That was the bravado. But then Stephen tells me years later, he's 8 or 9 years old, and Dad's sitting around. This is after he's somewhat disabled, and he goes, Stephen, you got a girlfriend? And Stephen said, no, Dad, I don't. I'm about 8 or 9. I'm fat. And he said, well, if you do, he goes, treat her like a queen. Treat her like she's the center of the universe. Everything possible. He goes, because if you don't, she's going to turn out to be a bitch like your mom.
Oh, so he learned his lesson, is what you're saying. He learned
that's exactly it.
Yeah. Because let me, Dr. Tommy, see this a little bit. The first tactic works, but it's only good for getting laid. The second one is important for marriage. Yep. And he figured that out before he checked out. Yeah, that was true.
Yeah, it's funny. Every story that we have about Dad at the end of the day, except maybe one or two, he was generally a gentle person who, if he had not been a drunk, I can't imagine he'd have been a completely different person.
And he was not a bad drunk. He was a fun drunk.
Yeah.
He was one of those drunks. He
wasn't like an angry, mean drunk or anything.
And until the last year or last few years before it came really bad, he never drank liquor. It was always Pabst Blue Ribbon, which to this day I can't drink.
The nastiest stuff going. Hey, you guys don't mind? I'm gonna go to my refrigerator and I'm gonna have a drink for your dad, if you guys don't mind. Hang on.
Please do. Yeah, go right ahead. One for the homie.
Yeah, but I don't drink at all because like my dad's an alcoholic.
Because again, a lot of this is mush in my brain. Dad was drinking at a real early age, right? Like, didn't I hear 12?
Yeah, they all were. I mean, he had 8 brothers or 8 siblings besides him. They're on a damn farm in eastern Kentucky and Hazard. And they used to lock them up in closets and make them pray and stuff like that. They were crazy. But he would go and stop. They literally walked to school miles. Yeah, and there was all these little saloons and shit, and he would stop when they were kids and hustle money and drink then.
Oh, wow, yeah.
They used to have slot machines or like that. He said you put nickels in them and they figure out how to cheat them, and they make money that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, his thing was, I grew up on the end of a hoe handle. Is always what he always talked about. But hell, if I'd have grown up like that, I'd have drank too. They were crazy.
We said a lot of bad things about Wanda Faye, our mother, in this. Surely you have a good story, and I'll give you a chance to think. I'll tell you my favorite story. It was Christmas Eve, and you remember we always opened Christmas presents on Christmas Eve instead of Christmas Day for whatever reason. And at the time, she wanted us to open her presents, the one she got us earlier in the day, but then Santa would come later the night. Does that sound familiar to you so far? Mm-hmm. Okay. So I come into the living room, and she had sent me and Carla to bed. And Carla just kept me in there while they unloaded the presents and everything. And I came in, and Mom is wrapped in blankets and her hair is soaking wet. Probably just took a shower, obviously, right? But she's shivering and under these blankets, right? And I'm opening all my gifts. And at the end of it, she asked me, did you get everything you wanted? And I'm like, no, there's whatever one big toy that I was missing that year. But I was like, no, I got everything, right? Because we didn't always get everything we wanted. She did great, but nobody ever does.
Nobody does.
And she goes, well, let me tell you something. You check under here. And she had hidden it, I think maybe under that little coffee table that was in front of the stores, the stairs there. And she gave it to me, and she goes, I had to crawl up into Santa's sleigh to steal this out of that because he forgot it. And the next thing you know, we were up in the air, flying all over the place. And by the time he realized I was in his sleigh, we were in China, and he had to fly me all the way back. But I got it for you, Stevie. And I don't that story
That's a great
tells
story.
so much about the person that she was, because like she wanted credit for that. Kind of, you can maybe look at it that way, but she wanted to create just a little bit of magic for us, because God knows what that year had been like for us and our family. And God knows she might have even shot somebody earlier that day. She might have stabbed Brian in the eye. I don't fucking know. Maybe she's trying to make up for something, but I don't know. She
was always good on holidays, and she could be funny too. I mean, hell, she saved my. I always tell boys the story. I called her one time saying that I was gonna quit college because I had like a 1.8 in biochemistry, and I was gonna become a pizza manager. And she's like, "You gonna do what?" Brian Lee, I'll come there and I will kick your ass. You're going to finish school. You're going to finish school. And if you don't finish school, I'll kill you, your roommate, everybody there.
By the way, I want to toast your father before I have this
Yes, please do.
to old Marines
Carl.
and loose Carl. To old Marines and loose European women. I understand. There you go, Carl.
Yeah, I probably have more in common with some people he impregnated in Eastern Europe than my brother. I'm sure he's over here spreading his seed. But she was funny. I mean, she would, and people loved her.
Yeah, they really did,
because they only saw that side of her. And but that's like, but Stephen was saying, it's like when you're performative and stuff, and that's part of what people would like in Stephen. That the skills that he got were from having to pretend he wasn't dying all the time. But I do think there's a huge difference in European versus, and even like, a lot of my friends are either Colombian, Uruguayan, or Argentinian I cycle with. And I told one the other day, I said, man, I could get my head straight. I don't feel good. I'm kind of depressed. And he goes, "Are you going to kill yourself?" I said, yeah. He goes, that would be bad. Can I have your bike?
I think you're going to reference the women, because I might have had an Arkansas 8 and an LA 10, but I ain't never had a French 10. I'm gonna get my ass to France. Let's go.
The hottest women are Northern Europe. Is Denmark, Finland, and Sweden. Germans are pretty good looking too. And the English girls aren't as fine. There's some winners, but the English have the same problems we do with the weight. There's a lot of fatties around England and London. So.
Brian, aren't you writing a book, by the way? I know I probably should have asked you this question.
I'm buying it right now, Brian. Whatever you put your pen down to, it's mine.
Well, I'll tell you, I've written over the years, I was pretty, I won't say prolific, but I was definitely above average in all the scientific articles and stuff I wrote.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
I've got close to 100 referee publications, but I never enjoyed writing any of that crap.
Yeah.
It's just, I did it for my job. Sometimes you think it has an impact, but after my divorce and started having these, being divorced, and there's something to be said for European women, by the way. But some of the crazy and just insane interactions I had with women. And I was very, very, like Stephen, susceptible to it. Yeah, but Jesus Christ, the first thing I learned was I wasn't nearly as bad a husband as I thought I was.
Yeah.
When I hear all the other stories, and definitely not as bad a dad.
Mm-hmm.
But when you start dating in your 40s again,
that's the worst.
It's like Russian roulette.
I did it in 30s and it sucked. I can only imagine.
Just do what I do and date a 21-year-old. That's stay the. I've said this a million times, but there's a reason I don't date my age range here in Arkansas, because I don't want to smell menthol cigarettes from your obese ass while you complain about your 3 children never calling you because you're. That's why I don't want to date somebody my age range in Arkansas. It's not going to happen.
I can't do that, Boogie, because I owned a Chevy truck older than your girlfriend. That I bought new.
Love is love. God damn it, love is love.
All right, what happened at the prom?
Oh yeah, tell the prom.
And I'll
What do
tell
you
the
remember?
book.
And I'll
I'll
clue
tell
it in.
I'll tell the book. No, I was taking advanced statistics, and I got a call at 8 o'clock in the morning in Penn State, and mom says, "Your brother's probably dead because you exaggerated everything. I haven't been able to talk. I've called all the hospitals, all the jails. We can't find him. He's dead."
Oh.
And she had a penchant for drama, obviously, but so I never took it full face value. But there were no cell phones or anything like that, so I'm all of a sudden involved. So for at least 24 hours, we're trying to find where in the hell Steven is.
Oh, really?
I called her like 2 hours out. I called her like 11 a.m. for the record, but yeah, go ahead.
But he shacked up in some hotel with his prom date.
Yeah.
Taking naked Polaroid pictures of her.
Yeah. I lost my virginity to her that night. It was a good night.
Nice.
And that was all. And I damn near failed my statistics exam.
I'm so sorry about that. And the worst part about it is I told mom, I'm like, I'm going to be back in the morning. Some of us are getting a hotel room.
So you're searching all over Arkansas for him or Virginia?
No, it's Virginia, Southwest Virginia. Yeah.
Virginia, I'm calling friends. I'm calling people I knew because I still knew a lot of cops and stuff back at that time because of EMT. Trying to find out where in the hell he's at and then having to deal with her drama. And it's just, she wouldn't leave me alone. She's calling my friends. Thank God I did not know mom in the time of real internet and real mobile.
Oh God, could you imagine?
I wouldn't have made it past there, but she was crazy. But she would do that, and then she went in the hospital so many times. I've never known a person remember we were talking about COVID, people being, once they get intubated, that was kind of, they have a spiral down. That woman had been intubated more than anybody I'd ever met. And she would go to the hospital in critical care so many times, and people tell me she's going to die, that I would ask the doctor to send the chart.
Yeah.
Because I didn't believe him. You talk about the book. That's part of where I'm writing it from. It's kind of your original question is that what attracts you to certain kind of women, depending upon what your familial background was, and how does that translate into real life? Because it's like a drug too. I'm attracted to crazy ass women.
Yep. That was one of my biggest issues is when I did the sugaring thing. It was another addiction rabbit hole, right? Like I tried it a few times and I tried like the straight up, just like, hey, rent you for a few hours, kind of miserable. And that was miserable. But the sugaring was a whole other thing. Come over, watch movies, play video games, and I don't have to deal with your bullshit. That was fucking addictive. And eventually I did end up dealing with their bullshit, but I liked the person by then. And so I was there for their bullshit. Whatever fucking miserable situation with their family they had, whatever their fucking mental health issues were, I was there to No, not consciously. I mean, they might have been addicted to crack, but they didn't do it.
You never pulled a crack cord?
I got a question for you both. I think I know the answer to it, but it'd be understandable if I didn't get the answer I expect. And then we got to wrap it up. And Brian, before we go, because Boogie's going to close out the show, or I'll close it out after this, I guess. I'm like, normally I'm professionally mean to Boogie. All right. That's my job, but I'm really not being mean here when I ask you this, but I'm just really generally interested. Do you hate your mothers? Do you hate your mother? From each of you, do you actually hate her still now that she's gone?
I don't know that I ever hated her. Because I always had an understanding that she was very mentally ill. I think right after she died for a year or two, I let myself hate her because like she wasn't around to be hurt by it anymore. Mm-hmm. But now, especially after having talked to Brian so much and it really having a comprehension of, she was just a very sick person
she wasn't in control. I mean, obviously.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like I said, the day she hit me with a hammer, she was in control. She had the conscious decision to turn it back from the heavy end to the claw end for whatever reason.
Nice.
And so like to some degree, there was some consciousness behind the eyes, but also, I don't know. I mean, like once you have an understanding of how the human brain works, some of us are just, and she was one of them,
Brian?
I never did hate her. I had far less resentment towards her than, because I got distance sooner than he did. And it took me a long time to understand it. I hate what she did to us, and I hate what it's taken a toll on the two of us and the people that we've loved. Because they're the ones that paid, but ultimately we were taught to hate ourselves. And that's what it manifests itself and stuff. But there's something to be said too, that pain breeds creativity. I don't think Steven would be nearly as funny.
Yeah.
I mean,
wouldn't be funny at all. God help us.
I wouldn't have been nearly as driven. The thing she taught me is that I'm far less judgmental about people now as I age than I ever was. Because I can imagine, our dad was only 50 when this happened to him. I'm 58.
Yeah, well, you beat him.
Yeah, and so it's like I don't, and I actually, the one reason I like stuff like what you all do is because it's the ultimate venue to be creative, and you can do what you don't. They either like it, it's pure democracy, or they don't like it.
Yeah,
there's algorithms that fight against you. But I did want to say, my friend Johnny, I had to mention, I give you a shout out, my Uruguayan friend that asked if I was going to kill myself. His name's Johnny.
Oh, John.
Although then Uruguayans can't say the J word for some reason, but anyhow, they say Shawnee.
Yeah.
He wants me to challenge Wings to a fight.
Oh, hell yeah. Please do.
I don't know. This guy looks pretty tough.
Yeah, Wings. I don't know. I mean, Brian is humble when he said he's got like hip pain. Dude got hit by a car a few years back. So Wings, I mean, it might be about as disabled as he's going to get right now.
Wings, they watched that fight, and they actually watched the fight, and they were so mad at me that, and it's a year. I mean, Tommy, you might be able to have a better grasp of this, but because you beat Boogie's ass, they were like, "How do you let your brother do this? How do you not stand up to him? How do you not do it?"
Like shit, he didn't even try to throw. He hit me one time in the second round, and I didn't even feel it.
Yeah. I mean, because you blocked it. That was always the game plan, by the way. Is my coach was telling me, go into this thing, let him hit you. You can take a hit, and then once he's gassed, that's when you.
That's what
I tried to explain to him. I'm going to be far more gassed than him by then, and I'll also have the shit beat out of me.
That's what Rogan tells people to do. Your defense.
Well, they fucked you because like you failed the MRI that one time, and then you had to have the second one, and then they started cutting minutes off the round. Point because they thought you were going to die.
I still couldn't make it 3 minutes.
And it's like I would train for being able to go 9 minutes full out, like just hitting the bag. Like,
did you enjoy the fight? I mean, because it was really like everybody in our internet.
Yeah, what was that like watching that chat? Or Brian?
It was extremely painful for me to watch.
Really,
and not because I mean, and kind of embarrassing because number one, you can get some pants that fit.
The worst part about the story is
he warned me.
He
warned
me. I figured I wasn't sure he was going to survive the flight over there, let alone the fight.
Right? Exactly.
It's like, but
see, here's the thing. I know that I can get hit for 3 minutes because that was just a Tuesday with Mom. It's standing up for 3 minutes. That's the problem.
But it was painful for me to watch it, especially because my friends were watching it.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
My reputation was always being the guy that everybody didn't want to fight.
Yeah, I bet. I get that feeling too.
But it was just funny. It was sad because I saw him when he got hit. It looked like he did being abused. And I know that I don't want to bring it down, but it did.
Yeah. You're his brother, man.
The fear came out.
Sure.
Yeah.
But not nearly as mad as I did at the stalker guy.
Where's the gun at, you fat?
A whole different situation. He come to my house.
You talking about Frank Hassel?
Yeah, that would have been a whole. And I've invited him several times. I live in Atlanta, so.
You got anger issues, huh, Brian?
Yeah, I'm just gonna be honest with you. I hope, Frank. I hope you're never in a dark alley with this man. I
Well,
promise
don't
you the
threaten
things.
them. Don't threaten.
No,
No,
I'm
I'm
just saying.
threatening.
Well,
I'm
at least
just
Frank's
saying.
smart enough to
No,
do
I'm
that
talking
shit
to
to me.
us. I don't. I'm
I'll
talking
fix him. I'll pour him a beer.
See, the thing is, like, I know how you. I mean, I live down in Augusta. I know how you country boys work. And
Well, that's where I got hit. Was
Yeah.
Augusta, by the way.
Oh, really?
Somebody-
Yeah.
I got hit down on right. Couldn't even get hit on James Brown Avenue, which pissed me off. The guy that hit me and then there killed me on a bicycle had 17 felony arrests.
Damn.
Get this, 17.
How's he still
Well,
out?
he also had he had no driver's license, no insurance, and all he got was a ticket. And I spent 2 weeks in the ICU.
You got to give it to life. It's going to kick us right into the grave. It's going to kick us on its way as it yeets us into whatever hole we end up in.
Well, you know, like I understand you guys suffer from depression, and obviously there's a good reason for it. But I got news for you, fucking Boogie. It doesn't mean a thing going to this show in the future. If that's what you think you did in this episode,
no, not at all. No, not at all.
No, but I gotta be honest.
Honestly,
I don't know how
compare me to my brother. Hold on a second.
Yeah.
Compare me to my brother. He did the opposite of me. Like he used
You
that
should have
pain,
done what he
and
did.
he's used it to drive. He used it as a drive. I used it as a stone on top of me. He used it as a pedestal to preach off of. That's the difference between me and Brian. And you can say it's because I'm the youngest, or we're different souls, different personality. You can say we had different levels of views, whatever it is. But I should have done what he did. And every time I talk to Brian, especially even today, it eats me up inside because I'm just so goddamn proud of him. And I wish I could have done something to make him that proud of me.
Well,
that's what it comes out.
I like you a lot, Brian, but I think what you both can take. I mean, you know, like, this might sound really ignorant because I never experienced anything like that, but I mean, you know, you're a doctor. You got to be fucking famous in internet land. Yeah. Both your fucking dreams came true. So whenever you're feeling depressed, maybe just think about what you've accomplished. Yeah. You know, as far as and maybe you've fallen off. I don't know, maybe there's problems in your job, but you can always, like, one thing I always tell these guys, even though they're both goofballs, at one time or another, they were at the top of a game that's a multi-billion-dollar business now. Yeah, yeah. And you at least you can, like, I mean, I know some people will be laughing in the chat. At least you can take solace in that. I mean, how long was I famous? 6 months? You know? And I always think, well, for that 6 months, you know, there's a few top 10 podcast charts out there that say we're a little over Rogan. You know, and you know what? I'll take it. And you can say, "Oh, that's nothing." But you know what? You can say it's nothing. I can be okay with it. And whenever you have a fucking issue, if you're thinking about offing yourself, I mean, I would lean into what you have rather than what you don't, and where you're at rather than where you were.
Here's my ego, Tommy. I laid the foundation for, like, Call of Duty commentary. Like, everybody,
and if that everybody
he really did existing today has elements of my older channel in them, either how they interact with their fans.
And my reaction is to tear that down right now. But I'm gonna say this: if that keeps one foot going in front of another, then who cares if it sounds arrogant? Go and
tear it down. Like, you know, how many popular channels right now?
No, I know you're right. By the way, you're right. I actually agree with you. You know, I actually agree.
I want to say one thing, and this is and I really appreciate having an opportunity to say this because, I was in higher ed. I was in some of the best institutions. I taught at Columbia, Emory, and none of it ever meant that much to me. Yeah. And when I finally gave it up because my son was having a health crisis, I had a boss ask me and say, well, why does this mean you're well published? Why does it mean something to you? And I said, I'm going to tell you something. Emory used to give an award. If you got 1,000 citations for a publication, they give you the Millie Award. And it was a big production and whatever. I've got one article that's got 800 or something like that. I was due to get it. I said, my brother had 5 million subscribers. I said, I've gotten emails year after year. Somebody said, your brother saved my life because he said it was okay to be fat. I've got others said your brother's an asshole. And I said, yeah, he's an asshole. Whatever. But the fact that you influence people like that, to me, is very important. And because I think all of us are happier in the long run if we're doing something to entertain, piss off, or just take the time with people.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I think that's authentic in that I don't judge any people. I think it's actually a wonderful opportunity to persuade people if you're being honest about it, I'll take somebody that's being honest about it than this overproduced bullshit that's on the channels.
Yeah, no
and you
shit.
can immediately tell. I think you can immediately tell on something like TikTok if it's produced or not produced.
Yep.
One thing I
will say,
let me say, this is important, Boogie. This is important.
Go ahead.
And I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm not disrespecting you, Brian. Like I think there's a big difference between saying it's okay to be fat because that's killing some influencers.
You're right.
But it's okay to say, all right, I'm fat and I'm working on it. Right. And not like, all right, I'm fat. You can't sit around all day and say, oh, I'm fat, I suck. Oh, I'm fat, I suck. And if that kept you from, going to the next plane, I've heard stuff like that through my fans. I'm sure Wings have heard it too to some level.
The message is always
that is something to point. No, but your brother's right. That's something to keep that one foot coming from another. There's people that enjoy at one time anyway, enjoyed your content to the point where I'm not checking out. I'm checking out what Boogie's doing, and that is something to be proud of.
You're right.
I'm like, everybody thinks I'm a bastard, but that's it. Listen, I know Wings got to go. But I don't know how this episode's going to be taken. I don't know how it's going to be taken, but this will always go down as my favorite. You wanted to close out, Boogie?
Yeah, it's a hell of a guy. I was just going to say one of the most interesting things I think that I've seen this in Desi. I've seen it in a lot of people I've talked to online that have been through the same that me and Brian has, and I definitely see it in Brian. And it's something I try to do, but I'm not that great at. I think we always have the belief that we'll always be miserable, right? Because we have that darkness inside us. And so what we've always tried to do, Brian did it with doctoring, I did it with entertaining, Desi does with her family and her animals. You just want to give. If I have to be miserable, I would like it if other people weren't miserable. Like, let me sacrifice the fact that I can't ever be happy to try to make other people happy briefly. And that's a large part of Brian's career. And I just think that's so fucking respectful and respectable. And I like Brian. One of the reasons I want to have you on the show is just to tell you how much I love and respect you. I'm so grateful that you're my brother. And thank you for taking the time to do this today.
I think you're a really cool guy too.
I appreciate it, guys, and I appreciate your time, and I had fun.
Yeah, if you want to, we'll post his socials, hopefully, in the bottom. Go give him a follow on Twitter. He's pretty funny. He's political from time to time, but he's funny there.
Send me his stuff, too.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Have a great night. Well, I hope you do. Take care.
Yeah, thanks for coming, Brian. Y'all have a great night.
Lol Cow Live.
As always, thanks for watching. We love you very much. We'll speak
like
with you
a
again.
chair.